So welcome to Bonnie's Designs. This is a very quick video to show what we'll be doing on Thursday's live stream, which is 9 o'clock London Greenwich Mean Time, normally on a Thursday. And it normally goes on most of the day. I'm a bit like Ken Dodd once I'm on. It's difficult to get me off. So this, my daughter brought this back. She'd been back from uni and she brought me the Star Trek magazine. And this is number 190 and it's November-December 2017 and it's £4.99 in the UK because there is a colour book coming out. Yay! And this is a colour book competition. So I was having a look, and of course there's the Star Trek Original and the Star Trek Next Generation. Now, I am a bit of an original nut, but that's because I'm the same age as Star Trek. So I love the fact that they're going to bring books out. It's going to be wonderful, and they look to be square, which is even better because we do like square books. So I'm going to photocopy this because it's on magazine paper, and I've had a thought. I was looking at the trees and thinking, you know, it's faces and things, so I may not do this in my new Derwent watercolour pencils. I've been having a look, and then I suddenly remembered a page that I did maybe a year ago now. And this is the Harry Potter, I think it's the first Harry Potter Magical Places and Characters colour book. And it's actually been created with pastel pencils. Now, I love pastels, but being a bit of an asthmatic, you've got to be a bit careful. So, in my Derwent art bag, I have my blending tools, and there is a video of what's in here, so have a look at the playlist. So, I've got my blending tools. But sometimes I blend with a small fine rigger, just barely damp. And these can turn into watercolours as well. And I've got them in the colour order that they come in, but it's my favourite colour order because you can see what you've got. Now this particular set here is a 90. It's an original set that Derwent brought out quite a few years ago. Now if you hunt about, you can still find them. And they're a little bit thicker and a tiny bit softer, which I love. Now the new ones, which again I adore, are, if you notice at the top, there's not a lot of colour coming up. There's a fair bit. They're still wonderful, but they're just a slightly different pigment, so they're not quite as really soft. So I would say that these were kind of soft pastel pencils, and this is the equivalent to the very, very soft chalky pastels that you buy. But I love both sets. This has got some wonderful colours, and I'm pretty sure that I did this page in this new set. How they kind of coloured it was there were 90 colours, sorry, there were 30 colours, and each colour had a light, a medium and a dark tone. So chocolate would be chocolate B for bold, it would be chocolate D for deep and a depth, and it would be chocolate F for faint. So you've got 3 shades of chocolate. In the new set they just rearranged them from the vanillas, lemons, saffron, all gold, deep cadmium. So you've got the range traditionally that I like, which is white, cold yellows, warm yellows, oranges, orangey reds, pinky reds, pinks, purples, purpley blues, cold blues, greeny blues, greens, dark greens, olives, browns, greys and blacks. And I like to keep mine in this order because it just makes me tick a bit better. Now I normally take them out of here when I'm using them, but I just thought I can just imagine, sometimes you have to think about your colour pages. So I thought I can just imagine creating this page. Now it took about 8 to 10 hours. It was a long time. There is on the playlist up there the Harry Potter Hagrid page. I think there's 6, 7, 8 videos, maybe 8 parts. And it shows how I scratched a little bit of pastel very carefully, because this is not pastel paper. This is just colour book paper. But if you're very careful, you can get about 2 layers. So I used tracing paper between, because I didn't fix it with water immediately. I did that last, because that is like being an artist. You get the colour down, and then you play with lights and darks and shadows. So I got the colour down. I think I did the chimney first. And then I did the background. And then what I wanted to do is, when you've finished it, just like you would in a normal composition, you then think, well, the forest wants to be behind the cottage and the little stump. And if you've done it in the same colours, flat, it looks like it's next to each other. So I then highlighted with an electric eraser. I took out a little bit and made it lighter. And I made, with a very dark, just another shade over the top, dark. And that instantly brought one in front of the other. So that's all I did. So I couldn't fix it, because if you fix the pastel, you can't move it about. If you don't fix it, you can use an electric eraser or an eraser, and you can manipulate a little bit out to make it a highlight. So it's the same colour, but if you can see, just running the eraser down that side has made it lighter. So it kind of comes in front. But you can only do that when you've finished the whole composition. So I put children's tracing paper a piece between, and that meant that when the page was shut, it wouldn't rub together, because it did take a few weeks to do this. And then if you want to highlight, just touch each individual space where you think you need a little bit of a highlight. And on the dog's ear. So you could do a lot more if you were on pastel paper, but we're not. So that's how I did this page. I said there's about 8 pages, I think, sorry. There's about 8 pages. And then I took a very, very fine rigger, just barely damp, not a water brush. It's got to be a rigger. And I dried it on a baby wipe, so it's barely damp. And then I just started in the corner and went across everything, and then clean the brush, because you pick up colour. Clean the brush, twist it on a baby wipe, like I do with I invented watercolouring that way, with a damp, barely damp rigger. And then did a little bit more and did it again. And that took about an hour, 3/4 of an hour. But that meant it's not pastel anymore, it's a watercolour, and it's dried. And there's no bumps, there's no crinkle, it's just a very, very nice colour page. And I'd forgotten how to do that, so I had a thought that I quite like this kind of, not photorealistic, but it just made it that little bit more interesting, getting all these colours and making the forest look behind, and the buildings and the people and the dog look forward. And that made me think that will work extremely well for this colour page. But it's a magazine and it's very shiny, so I'm going to photocopy it. Only on photocopy paper, although I do have I have 120. It's a bit more expensive photocopy paper. It's called luxury photocopy paper or printer paper. It's probably not as thick as this lovely colour book, but it will be thicker than ordinary thin paper. But I have used this technique on printer paper and it works fine. I used it in the Bennett Klein. So I thought that I could get some really nice dark forests and then bring the girl a little bit forward and then the other characters a little bit forward, but then have these really forward. So it gives you depth, because if you coloured it all the same, they would be banging into each other. So I thought I would do that, and I've used it on the Bennett Klein, so that's how I know it works. I think this was pastel, with just a barely damp rigger. And I'm going to be using the pastels a lot more, because I really like the fact that, you know, this is fairly, it's gorgeous, gorgeous, but it's not as thick as some other colour books. And we can get watercolour books now, which are watercolour paper. But with a barely damp rigger, you can actually set pastel, so it becomes a gorgeous, gorgeous colour. But you have, but you end up with a really nice effect, and it's not going to go anywhere. So hopefully that's Thursday's stream, this Thursday, which will be the beginning of December, our live stream. Thank you for watching.